Hey, every state operates a tad differently when it comes to deposits on home purchases. In North Carolina, we have both an earnest money deposit, which you may have heard of, and a due diligence fee, which might not be familiar. And here's the kicker. Legally and technically, neither are necessary, yet both are expected. Market conditions have a lot to do with if and when these deposits are given and their amounts. Recently, earnest money deposits were minimal, perhaps $500 or lower. But in the flaming competitive market of the past few years, due diligence checks were as much as tens of thousands of dollars. So what are they, and what's the difference between them? The due diligence check is written out to the seller. It's delivered the day that both parties sign the contract, or usually within 24 hours. It is deposited directly into the seller's personal account. This fee is meant to compensate the seller for the period of time when the property is off the market for a buyer's due diligence process. Think of due diligence as the inspection and financing period. The amount often depends on the price of the home and the length of the due diligence period. Keep in mind, in North Carolina, a buyer can walk away from the purchase of any house for any reason or no reason at all. If the buyer chooses to walk away, then the seller keeps the due diligence fee, even if the inspection shows something terrible or if the appraisal comes in super low and the seller refuses to negotiate. The due diligence fee can be returned to the buyer only if the seller breaches the contract. Earnest money, on the other hand, is written out to an escrow agent. This may be the listing brokerage or more likely a real estate attorney. The money is deposited into a non-interest-bearing or an interest-bearing account held by the escrow agent. The earnest money proves to the seller that you are sincere, that you're moving forward with conviction in earnest. If you move forward with purchasing the house, then the earnest money will be credited back to you at the settlement. If you choose to walk away from the purchase during the due diligence period, then the earnest money deposit may be returned to you. If you choose to walk away from the purchase after the due diligence period, then the seller gets to keep the earnest money deposit. As you can see, probably guess, the seller would want a larger due diligence fee since they would get to keep it if the buyer backs out of the purchase. And on the flip side, a buyer would like to give less due diligence just in case. Honestly, neither type of deposit is mandatory by law. However, both are expected. Market conditions have a lot to do with the deposit amounts and which to give. With the conditions, you can likely expect to give both types of deposits. The due diligence fee is compensation to the seller for taking the house off the market for the due diligence process, and the earnest money is meant to prove that you are serious about moving forward with the purchase. The earnest money may potentially be returned to the buyer depending on the circumstances, but the due diligence fee will not unless the seller breaches the contract. Does this all sound a bit confusing? I can understand that. Now you know why you might need a professional real estate broker to guide you each step along the way. Don't go it alone. And I'm not just tooting my own horn here. There are a lot of moving parts to a real estate transaction. You need someone on your side protecting your interests, and that is the job of the buyer's agent. Thanks for watching. Make it a great day.